gameranx presents another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and some of my thoughts on the latest games releasing. And today we're talking about the Crash Bandicoot N Sane Trilogy. Now, unlike the dozens and dozens of other remasters and remakes, this one truly felt like one that people were actually really asking for. Personally, I always thought the old Crash games aged like a fine wine and weren't too hard to find and play on PSN sometimes anyway. But after so many shitty years of Crash games that original fans didn't really jive with, we're finally getting what so many people really wanted. New, cleaned up, beautiful versions of the original 3 best Crash games. The game myself and many others grew up on. Now, nostalgia is a powerful and scary thing, and I didn't really know what to expect jumping into this. What did I really want from it? What does anyone want from it? My bar was admittedly pretty low, but this collection turns out to be a hell of a good time. Look, there's no way around it. The Crash games are incredibly simple platformers. There's not a lot of advanced stuff going on, just straightforward running, jumping, and sliding in 3D, but pretty constrained environments. I am happy to report, though, that it's still fun to play. I think it's going to be fairly obvious that newcomers might not get it, though. I'm not quite sure about how someone who has never played Crash will react to this platforming. I mean, sure, the game looks new and great, but it's still designed and plays like an older, simpler game. But I digress, so let me back up. What you get here is the first 3 Crash games: the original Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, and Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. They're all completely remastered from the ground up. I mean, they look higher quality with new textures, lighting and environments and effects, redone cutscenes and animations, and reworked music. Let me break down the games first. Just know that this part is very much up to personal taste. The original Crash holds up the least. It's still playable, and it's a lot of fun, but it still doesn't go full in on the charm yet like Crash 2 and 3 do. That's not because of this remaster, that's how it was back in the day. It's also the most linear and probably the shortest of the series. But Crash 2 is my personal favorite, mainly just because I have so many memories as a young little shit playing it. And it steps things up in terms of level design and variety, as well as just feeling like you have a bit more to do. It's got more attitude and it's got some sick music. Then you got Crash 3 Warped, which is a fan favorite for a reason. It's got that time travel twist, so there's even more level variety, and beating bosses nets you new, useful abilities. But there's also just situational variety. You're running from more things, you're playing as Coco instead of Crash sometimes, you're swimming, you're jet skiing, you're riding motorcycles, and the list goes on. The types of levels here are just so awesome. Each time period, from prehistoric to ancient China and medieval to the future, with its own cool theme music, pretty lovingly recreated here. It's good, and to me it does mostly hold up, but how does it all play? First off, something I didn't expect, but going back to the first Crash, I really missed the slide and the slide high jump ability. It's sorely missed and took getting used to not having it, like going backwards essentially. But otherwise, these games play fairly great. Vicarious Visions definitely didn't want to change the way things played, save for a few tiny convenience things here and there. Playing with an analog stick also takes a bit of getting used to, and I'll be completely honest, I still can't quite get used to the slight accuracy needed, like for example when you bounce from crate to crate in a row. It might just be a bit off, but it might just be me. The same goes for steering in vehicle sections. It just feels slightly off. Otherwise though, the standard stuff, running and jumping, feels good. Sliding and running and spinning all feel exactly like you'd expect, and it's like riding a bike again after so many years. You pick it up easy, and if you're new, it's like I've been saying, a fairly simple but really fun game. I think these games have a lot of replay value in them though, not only just because as a kid it was the only game I had and I had to replay it endlessly, but also because there are incentives to break every crate in the game, get every gem and crystal, and there's a damn good time trial rush mode for each level. With Crash, the mechanics are all well and good. You still get that satisfying slide jump spin and you get the drop on an enemy, but it's really the levels and boss battles that you stick around for. You know, good old-fashioned memorable levels and boss fights. They're all still here and they look better than ever. And I will definitely say that one of the biggest draws here is the visuals. It looks kind of quite simply amazing. I was worried they wouldn't quite get it right. It would screw with how my brain remembered it, you know, or something like that, because remastering a game is a tricky line to walk because with new technology, some gaps have to be filled in. And developers have screwed this up before. I'm looking at you, Silent Hill HD. Crash actually looks just as you remembered him, just 10 times better. He doesn't look like the butchered later Activision Crash from the newer games. He looks 100% like the old Crash, just more. He's furry, he's got a glint in his eye, and he's got more frames and polygons. He's really a marvel to look at. Levels too mostly look fantastic with weather and lighting making quite the the difference. My only complaint though, some levels aren't as dark as I would have liked, especially Crash 2 had a lot of dark corners and they're all gone now. But otherwise, the game is sharp and solid at 1440p on the PS4 Pro this footage was recorded on. I would have liked 60 FPS, but that's a whole other conversation. But I will say the load times really bothered me. They're everywhere, before the start menu, between levels, restarting levels, and they just feel like they're always there, very persistent. The game looks fantastic, like I've said, but it's still a very old game. I mean, loading screens just feel lame and like they shouldn't be there. I got over it, but it's still a bit unfortunate. Also, as a new feature, you can play as Coco in all 3 games, just swapping out from Crash. That's a new addition, and it's fine, I guess. I mean, she plays almost exactly the same as Crash, but it's cool. Now, the visuals are great, but I was extremely worried about the music, going into it knowing it would be changed a bit. But thankfully, it seems here like it's lovingly recreated. I mean, it feels slightly updated and not quite the same, but still very much evocative and fun, and I'd say like 80 to 90% similar to the original tracks. Some sound effects in the game are slightly different, like the slide sounding slightly different to me is unforgivable as a hardcore fan, but most stuff sounds similar if not the same, just packing a bit more punch. The whole entire remaster or remake aspect for me is like a 9 out of 10 recreation. It's pretty great, and as an old fan, I'm really happy with it. It evokes nostalgia, but holds up and accomplishes what little it even sets out to do. And I'm having fun with it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Now, if you're someone who never played the original games, that's where I'm not so sure. They're great, but I don't know how fulfilling they'll be to a player more used to modern conventions. I do hope if you're a newcomer, you pay close attention to my gameplay, because what you see here is exactly what you get. Not to sound like a fanboy though, but if you want a taste of what helped build PlayStation and just modern gaming in a sense, this collection right here is a really good time. But that's how I'm feeling on this Crash Bandicoot collection. You know how Before You Buy works. I gave you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, and now I definitely want to hear yours down in the comments. Whether you're young or you're an old piece of crap like me, I want to know your perspectives on Crash. Maybe you grew up on the later games from PS2 and PS3 360, or maybe you've been playing the game since the beginning and have been replaying them and you have a good grasp on everything. Whatever your perspective is and whatever your experience is with Crash, I definitely want to hear about it down in the comments. I'll be talking to you guys, answering any questions you have, but you know, you can always find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino as well if you got any more questions. But as always, thank you guys for coming around. Before You Buys are my favorite videos to do. Clicking that like button helps us out a ton and we really appreciate it. But subscribing if you're new is good too, because we put out stuff like this all the time. But as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you guys next time.